Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to another episode of The Church of Tim Curry, the Christmas special to be exact. Joining me is my co-host Viva Becca.
Hello.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about an animated musical adaptation of A Christmas Carol, starring Tim Curry as Scrooge. For those of you who don't know, A Christmas Carol tells the story of a grumpy, money-hungry man called Ebenezer Scrooge, who is visited by three ghosts of Christmas, who take him to different timelines to see the errors of his ways. Okay, so Viva, what are your initial thoughts on this adaptation of A Christmas Carol?
Well, I liked it. It just followed the plot line of the book pretty closely, and you know, I think it was very, it was not great quality, but it was, you know, decent quality. It wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Yes, I have to agree. It's very okay. And
yeah.
I will admit there were moments in the film where I was like, yeah, that was well handled. That the way that was written, that was quite faithful to the book. It definitely captured the spirit of the book. And I will admit at the same time, there are little things added, but they do sort of provide something. They're not there for the sake of it. For example, in this adaptation, Scrooge has a dog called Debit, and I love the name. But I love that the relationship between Debit and Scrooge reflects the arc that Scrooge is going throughout the film. Like his mood and his feelings, he'll take it out on Debit. And I really love those moments. Like there's the scene where they come into the memory of Fezziwig, and at first Scrooge reaches over to Debit, and Debit's initial reaction is, oh, he's gonna hit me. But then Scrooge starts stroking him, and I love little moments like that. Another addition I liked was having the ghost of Christmas Present be a sassy black woman voiced by Whoopi Goldberg. It's a refreshingly different portrayal, but one that also remains faithful to the character. She's jolly and fun, but also not afraid to give Scrooge a piece of her mind. Even though I think these little details they've added add something to the film, at the same time, I can see why it's not as well known, because it is a very generic adaptation, and it seems to be riding on the idea, hey look, we're an animated adaptation, and that's its only hook.
It is it is also a musical.
Again, yeah, but the thing is, those two things have been done with this story so many times, and this story has been adapted so many times, so it's very difficult to bring something new to the table. But unfortunately, this film doesn't do that much. It just does a good adaptation with little things here and there. There's nothing too big.
I wouldn't even say it was one of the best adaptations, though. I think it's definitely, like, middle of the road, kind of.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It's the kind of adaptation that I can imagine when I was a kid, like the TV being rolled into the room and the teacher thinking, I don't think they're going to find the book very entertaining. Let's welcome them in slowly and play a cartoon for them instead. And I can imagine it being this cartoon. It's got that feel to it, really. And yeah, so I can see why it's not as well known.
It just seemed a little bit fast. Like Scrooge seemed like he was reformed very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Like he would be in the environment for like 5 seconds, and then he would like start sniffling, and he'd be like, I wish I could say something to whoever it was, or I wish I had given more money to the poor people or something, like after being there for a couple seconds. But I feel like that probably just had to do with time constraints.
Yes.
'Cause the movie isn't very long at all.
No, it isn't. It's one of the more shorter adaptations. Not as short as Mickey's Christmas Carol, which is like 20 minutes, but still pretty short. And it doesn't help that the animation is Good Times level quality. It's not a Good Times production, it's actually a Deek production, but the animation is so Good Times that you would mistake it for being a production by them. But it's animation that's not too awful. It's just average
Yeah,
at best.
you can watch it.
Yeah, it's very watchable, tolerable, average animation.
There are a couple times when they really mess up. The background characters will be standing there, even the main character will be standing there frozen with this idiotic expression. Or they there's a part in with a song where one of the characters animated starts moving their mouth before the song begins. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
There's a couple places where the faces move around, but the hair doesn't move, so that's kind of weird. But really, overall, the animation is
It's just tolerable, really. It's not a consistent eyesore, let's just say.
Yeah, it's not consistently. It's just horribly awkward.
It's passable at best, really.
It made you well. Did it make you like really awkward that little child Scrooge looks older?
Yes.
Than older about to be engaged Scrooge.
He does. Young Scrooge looks like he's about 40 and has a giant forehead.
Yeah.
He does look really creepy.
They drew on like crow's feet. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
This is a small child. Why does he need crow's feet?
I don't know. I didn't get that. It was one of the weirdest character designs in the film. It really stuck out to me. Speaking of the songs, though, they are very forgettable. I've forgotten most of them already. And they do come out of nowhere as well. And they just feel like...
Yes, they're not very smoothly put in.
No. They're very random. And they're never really built up. And it's like, oh, it's a song now. Okay. But it just seems to be songs for the sake of being songs. The only one that really kind of stuck with me was Santa's Sooty Soot.
And I never quite saw such a sight as Santa's sooty suit.
Oh, he never quite saw such a sight as Santa's sooty suit. Scrub-a-dub-a-dub-dub-dub-dub, scrub-a-dub-a-dub-dub.
'Twas a ripped red velvet jacket you could tell was once a beaut, of a torn and tousled trouser streaked with slushy stains to boot, with the black and beaten breeches of a big and burly brute.
But that's because it's a very repetitious song, so it can get stuck in your head. It's very catchy, but everything else, I don't remember any of the songs. I honestly don't.
I just didn't... They're not bad songs, but they're not good. They're just forgettable.
They are.
But I mean, I remember them, but I remember a couple different ones. Like I remember the tavern song where everyone's bullying Scrooge.
Yeah.
Random acts of kindness, random acts of kindness.
Preferably performed with anonymity.
It's your Yuletide duty.
Commit some senseless beauty.
Pour some off on me.
And that one kind of confused me because it was about performing random acts of kindness for people to get in the holiday spirit. At the beginning of the song, they were talking about how you should perform random acts of kindness, and they say preferably with anonymity, so
Yeah.
so that people don't just think you're a great person. But then at the end of the song they say perform random acts of kindness in case you are the one who ends up on the street. And I'm wondering how people are going to know that you were the kind person to help you when you're on the street if you perform them with anonymity.
Right. I didn't notice that. But
it's just little things like that. Like, they're not well put together songs, you know?
Yeah, very standard, like the film itself.
Yeah.
But I will admit that the film's score is pretty decent for a straight-to-video production. It has some weight and gravity to it, really supporting the emotions on screen. I was actually quite moved by some of the pieces.
Go after her, you fool! Stop. Don't show me anymore.
I told you, these are the shadows of the things that have passed. Don't go blaming me for your choices.
Yeah, and it actually does have a music score. We've been talking about Good Times a lot, and I know that with some of their more well-known productions, they don't actually have a music score. They just use stock music.
Yeah.
So this one does not do the stock music thing.
No.
So that's good.
And the thing about this movie is that it does have quite a cast to it. There's Ed Asner, Jodie Benson, Kav Sosay, Frank Welker, Michael York, and Whoopi Goldberg.
Now, what I wanted to know was how you feel about the A+ top quality English accents that they were doing throughout the movie. Because they were, some of those, wow, wow. They sounded like real English people, like the 30% of the time that they remembered that they were supposed to be doing accents.
Yes!
Absolutely. Spot on.
I love it. I loved it so much. It was so wonderfully terrible. And the worst had to be Whoopi Goldberg. She was just amazingly awful. It bounced between English, American, and Caribbean.
I bet you've never had a guest like me before.
I'm sure I haven't, madam.
You bet your brass bed, nor have you entertained any of my earlier family members.
But yeah, most of them, it's just the accents, really. The performances are okay.
Well, I didn't care for the performance for Ghost of Christmas Past either. I think it's very strange when people decide to cast real little kids for all of the little kids except for one. And it's just so awkward, and it just sticks out, and it's not really something that you need to do.
Yeah, I did kind of notice that, but at the same time, I was a little forgiving because I do love Capsose, so there's a little part of me was like, it's okay, because I'm a big fan of hers. But yeah, she puts on this very obnoxious Cockney accent.
Yeah.
It's really
and
over the
this
top.
very obnoxious little voice. She was trying to sound like a snotty little kid, and it just...
It's too snotty.
It didn't work. It didn't work for me, at least.
Are you the first spirit Jacob talked about?
Spot on, Governor. I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
But Tim Curry, okay, so I've got... My feelings are kind of split because it depends on the kind of Scrooge he's playing. When he is Scrooge that's developing, becoming a kinder, more well-meaning man, he's pretty amazing, and he reads the lines very authentically, and he is so invested in the character because he's played this character before on stage. So the passion definitely comes through. And I'd say that there are moments in this movie that really showcase him at his best.
It is me, poor forgotten boy. I was never invited home for the holidays. Alone, stranded. I wish...
What's the matter, eh?
There was a boy at my door last night. Perhaps I should have given him something.
When he's playing Grumpy Scrooge, he sounds like Nigel Thornberry in Rugrats Go Wild when he's hit with a coconut and turned into a baby.
Go away! I won't believe it. Did you give me a boo-boo?
He sounds so whiny. He's like, no, I don't like Christmas.
I will say when he's yelling at his dog, and he is saying the dog's name, which is Devitt.
I love it.
I love it.
I just love he's called Devitt.
I love it.
I love, and I do like the way it's Devitt.
Yeah.
Devitt. Stupid dog.
He likes me, Father.
Oh. Damn it!
Do you have any other things to add?
No, I mean, it sounds like I'm saying a lot of bad things about it, but I really liked it.
Yeah, I definitely did. I didn't leave it feeling unsatisfied or bored. I was like, oh, that was nice. It's kind of like if next year I was in a position where I wanted to watch a Christmas film that I'd seen before because at the same time I wanted to wrap presents or some kind of Christmas fodder.
Yeah.
And had it in the background, I'd be like, yeah, I'll put that on. Yeah, that's what it is. It's kind of like one of those movies you'd see on Netflix at the side when you search Christmas. It's one of those kinds of films, and so there are a lot of films like that.
If you don't watch it, you're not really missing anything because
No.
the animation is really nothing special at all.
No.
So, yeah.
To conclude, I thought this was a passable and enjoyable movie. While it's not exactly a high-quality production, its heart is in the right place, and it does its best to adapt the classic story of A Christmas Carol. Sure, it's quite generic, but there's little tiny changes here and there that you can appreciate. I'm going to rate this film 6 out of 10.
Well, I mean, there really isn't much that I can say about it because it's just so middle of the road. Really kind of forgettable, doesn't really stick out, but at the same time when you're watching it, you can still have a pretty you can have a fun time and it's not offensive at all. So I would say that it's definitely a 5, just average.
I've been Jambareeqi, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Church of Tim Curry. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.